This episode is sponsored by Jacobson Real Estate Company. Are you ready to find your dream home? Or maybe you're thinking about selling and want the best deal possible? Well, look no further. At Jacobson Real Estate Company, we make buying or selling your home smooth, stress-free, and exciting. With 50 plus years of experience and a deep knowledge of the Winona, Minnesota area market, we specialize in turning your real estate goals into reality. Whether it's finding that perfect neighborhood, negotiating top dollar for your property, or answering all of your questions along the way, we're here for you. Plus, with our personalized approach, you're not just a client, you're family. So why wait? Let Jacobson Real Estate Company open the door to your future. Call us today at 507-313-2716 or visit our website at jacobsonrealestatecompany.com because your next chapter starts here. Buy, sell, invest. Jacobson Real Estate Company. Welcome to this week's edition of Brews and Crews. I am your host, Chris Jacobson, and I am here with a friend of mine who is big into a nice hobby that I think is actually quite fun, is actually taking, I would say, the United States by storm. It's not pickleball, it's cornhole. And I am joined by Caleb Forst today, so welcome to the Speakeasy Studios.
It's always a pleasure to be here, Chris. I can't tell you how much I love coming into this garage. All the lights, the cars. It's without a doubt like the best place to like hang out, have a drink, watch a game. I love coming here. So thank you so much for the invite.
You're welcome. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. We are going to share a Basil Hayden. And this one, I've had Basil Hayden on, but this one's called the Subtle Smoke. So I have ice for you if you like it on ice. It is slightly chilled. I got your glass for you, so you can grab your glass if you want.
I'm definitely more of a neat guy.
You're definitely neat. Well, then here you go. You start off with what you want. I'm going to grab some ice, and we'll get cracking this bottle open because I have never had this one yet.
Yeah, the only time I ever really have any kind of spirit on ice if it's like cheap, like, you know, $15 for a handle kind of thing, because I gotta have it on ice to water it down. But when it's good bourbon, good whiskey, definitely have it on neat.
Yeah, and this bottle wasn't even really that expensive. I think it was like in the 40s, so it's not real expensive at all.
It's like, yeah, about lower middle shelf, I would probably say.
Yep, and I always gotta have it chilled a little bit. So anyways, yeah, you just mentioned you've been here multiple times. We've had Super Bowl parties here you've been a part of, and there'll be another one this year as long as you're not working, which I never know. You're always working, it seems.
Ever since I've started coming to these your Super Bowl parties, I've tried to make an effort to make sure to get that Super Bowl Sunday requested off.
That's good.
And I'm the main closing driver at Toppers. I mean, I usually close 5 to 6 nights a week, usually. So my boss basically gives me priority for requesting off. As long as I get it in ahead of time, you know, if somebody already has a date requested off, that's obviously I don't get to trump them. But if I put a date in and then somebody else puts a date in behind me like a month later, he gives me the priority because I've been at Toppers for almost 6 years now.
Okay.
And like I said, I'm the main closing driver. I've helped out so much. So my boss is awesome. He's also a personal friend of mine.
So yeah, so for those, if you don't know what Toppers is, it's a franchise pizza place. Caleb's been working for them for quite some time, like you said, 6 years. And so got a question then for you. Yeah. You said you're the closing driver. What time do you close that, first of all?
So pre-COVID, we closed at 3 a.m. every single night. Now, post-COVID, it's 2 a.m. weekdays and 3 a.m. weekends. My schedule generally is Thursday through Sunday closing, and then sometimes I'll work on Monday or Tuesday if they need me to. So it's a lot. But I'm naturally a night owl, so even if I don't work, I'm usually up till 3, 4 a.m. anyways. So it kind of works with my normal sleep schedule and everything. And as a delivery driver, at least for pizza, the money is the late night.
Okay.
I also worked at Gerbert's at one point as a sandwich place. So when you think about soup and sandwich, it's generally not what you're wanting at 1, 2 a.m., especially if you've been drinking. So it's more of a lunch. But pizza, wings, cheesy breadsticks, especially on weekends, Fridays and Saturdays, that's generally where you make the most money. So if I got to sacrifice a weekend night to make, you know, an extra $50 or $100 in tips, absolutely worth it.
So I can only imagine you have to have some good stories from being a late night pizza driver, especially like you said, people are drinking, and what do you want at 1, 2 in the morning? Probably pizza, not sandwiches. Have any good stories?
Yeah, so I've definitely got a couple of stories, and I'll save the best one for last because this one's always a kicker. This is always like the one whenever anybody asks me, do you have any stories? It's the one I always tell. So I'll go with a couple. So one of the ones that comes right off the top of my head for me was, this would have been short. I think this would have been my first year working at Topper. So back in 2015, like fall in 2015, I want to say. And this was 2 days after 9/11. So, September 11th, everybody always makes posts about what happened on September 11th, 2001. And I remember one time I had a delivery right next to the track. So I've never had an issue with anyone trying to rob me or screw with my car or anything. Am I allowed to cuss? Can I cuss?
Oh, yeah, you can cuss.
Okay, I want to make sure. Okay, I wasn't sure. But anyways, I made a delivery like normal, and I come back, and there's this old guy, and you can tell he's homeless. And he's got, have you ever seen Trailer Park Boys?
I know of it, but I've never seen it.
Dude had like goggles like bubbles. Not quite to that extent, but like just weird ass bubbles. And he comes up to me and he's like, "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" I'm like, again, brand new delivery driver. Me nowadays, I would just ignore him and get in my car and go. But brand new delivery driver, I was kind of stunned, didn't know what to do. He's like, you realize like you could have caused a terrorist attack. We're 2 days past 9/11. I'm like, what do you mean? Somebody, while you were making that delivery, someone could have easily got in your car, driven on the tracks, put it in parked, taken the keys, and you could have caused a terrorist attack with a train.
Oh, interesting.
I was like, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Again, 20-year-old me, I didn't know what to do, so I just apologized and got in my car, and I was just, to this day, I've still never had anyone approach me on a delivery like that. So that's one that comes to mind. Another one, too, again, more being a seasoned driver, obviously, I ignore anybody who tries to come up and asks me for rides. For anyone out there who knows, no, here in pizza, pizza drivers are not chauffeurs. They're not Ubers. They're not Lyfts. It's actually highly illegal. I should say illegal, but it's really dangerous to actually take customers, because when we sign up as delivery drivers, and this goes for anyone, Domino's, Pizza Hut, whatever it may be, if you get into a car accident, you can't sue Pizza Hut, Toppers, whatever it is. I don't want to say signed your life away, but you've made the agreement that, hey, if I get into an accident, it's my fault. I'm willingly driving for Toppers. Even if it's not my fault, I still can't go after Toppers for damage to my vehicle, damage to myself. But if you take a customer or anyone off the street and get into an accident and they get hurt, well, then Toppers becomes liable. So it's a really big no-no to do that. Again, same thing, naive, new driver, probably in my first year. I remember I took a customer somewhere, and this happened twice where I'm never doing this again. First time would have been, they said, "Oh, I'm only a couple of blocks away." Yeah, and then turns out they were like out in Fountain City. But the problem is this dude's in my car. I'm like, dude, I'm not taking you to Fountain City. He's like, well, I'm in your car, so what are you gonna do about it? What am I supposed to do? I can't call Toppers and say, hey, I got a customer in my car.
Yeah.
So I ended up taking him to Fountain City, and turns out Fountain City was actually Cochrane.
You're like 30 minutes away.
Yeah, I was pretty pissed. And I remember when I got back, my boss was like, dude, where have you been? It's been an hour on this. And I don't remember the excuse I made. But that was one incident. I made sure I was never going to give another customer a ride.
Right.
But the biggest one that comes to mind is I was pretty sure a customer was leading me someplace to mug me, because he's like, I'll give you $50 to take me towards the east side of town. I'm like, cool, $50. So he gets in my car, I make my delivery, I'm heading towards the east end of town, and I say, okay, what's your address? Just keep going east, man. I'm like, I need an address. Like, I'm not gonna just drop you off randomly somewhere. And I pressed him for, where's your address? Where am I taking you? Would not tell me. And then he told me just super sketchy, tweaking. I couldn't tell. It seemed like he was not drunk. It seemed like he was on drugs. So he asked me to drop him off at Quick Trip. And as he's getting out, he's like, you're not going to leave me, are you? I said, no, I'm not going to leave you, man. Why would I do that? You gave me $50. All right, man. You stay right here. As soon as he gets in the Quick Trip, put it in reverse and leave. I'm like, no. So, yeah, those are two. But I'll go ahead and do the third one. This is
the main event.
The main event. Now I'm thinking about all my great stories happened in my first year.
That's because you didn't know what was going on.
Because I didn't know any better. Now I just ignore people. It doesn't faze me when anyone tries to talk to me or do stuff. But this was a delivery right off of campus from Winona State, right across the IWC. You'll actually, if you drive by it, you'll know it. It's the apartment complex for students right on the corner of Westmark and Main Street. And as I'm pulling up to a delivery, I didn't see anything at first, but I heard some chick run outside, laugh, and then run back inside. Yeah, I was like, okay, whatever. It's probably a drunk college chick. So I opened up the door. Drunk college chick, absolutely fully nude, completely nude.
Oh my gosh.
Very attractive too. I mean, like she was probably 18, 19 years old. Like very, very good looking girl. Completely naked. And she's like, oh, your topper's here for delivery. At the time I was single, so I was like really stunned. I'm like, oh, hi. And then she calls her other friend who comes around the corner, also completely naked.
Jeez.
Also really attractive. And they both come up to me and like invite me inside. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm coming inside. So I come inside, I start giving the pizza to them. Next thing I know, 3 dudes, all with their shirt off, one with a camera in his hand, like an actual video camera, not a phone,
man.
come around the corner like, pizza dude! And immediately I'm like, oh my God, I just walked in on a porno. They were making, that's the only thing that logically makes sense, to have 2 completely naked chicks, one of them with a camera in their hand, and 3, all of them were shirtless. And they're all just like wanting to get a video with me, and I was legit thinking they were going to ask me to be part of the video. But no, they never did that. But then the 2 naked chicks just started kind of like feeling me up, and then one of them just like literally went in to kiss me, and I was like, I just went with it. So I spent about 10 minutes at this delivery with just going back and forth with 2 naked girls, making out with them, and they tipped me like $20 too, which is icing on the cake. And then as I left, I had this brilliant idea to conveniently leave my toppers bag there. So I left my toppers bag, went back to the store, and I was like, and I told my boss at the time, hey, I left my toppers bag at that store. And for those who don't know, those pizza like hot bags, they're like $80 to $100 a piece. Like they're not cheap. So went back, made out with them some more because oh my God, the toppers guy came back. And I made sure, and it is floating out there somewhere. I currently don't have access to it because after I got a new phone and tried to transfer my pictures, it never transferred over. But I did get a few photos with them because I knew nobody would believe this story.
That's a tough one to believe.
I wish I had the photos because I wouldn't show it on here. I'd show it to you to prove. As far as I know, my brother has a copy of it, but he has lost it throughout the years as well. It's somewhere in the iCloud. But I do remember getting a photo and coming back and telling my coworkers, because again, I knew they wouldn't believe me.
Sure.
And they said they didn't believe me. And this was back when, pics or it didn't happen was a common phrase.
What was it?
Pics or it didn't happen.
Oh, yeah. Photos or it didn't happen.
Yeah. And that's what they told me. They said, pics or it didn't happen, Caleb. Boom. And I showed them.
Otherwise, that guy has it on film.
Otherwise, he has it on, maybe you know what? It could be on Pornhub somewhere out there.
Let's hope.
And I'm not going to lie. I have spent a little time trying to find it. And I could not find it.
Well, that story definitely trumps all the other ones. That's crazy. However, it's actually probably not that surprising. You probably delivered that somewhere in the middle of the night or close to late night.
Probably like around 11, midnight, somewhere in that ballpark.
Right, and so I guess it's a college town. People get crazy. Yeah, I guess it's not that unbelievable, but I guess photos or it didn't happen and your coworkers saw the photos.
I mean, yeah, it's happened once or twice before where someone naked has answered the door, both that I like to see and some I don't. But the thing that trumps it is, like I said, the fact that I'm 95% positive it was a porno because it's the only logical thing. Why would anyone have an old handheld camera, 2 naked chicks, and 3 all shirtless guys coming out around the corner?
Wow.
Like, there's just nothing else that makes sense. So I didn't get to actually participate in it, but I lived almost every delivery driver's dream to deliver to a porno.
There you go.
That's
something else.
That's fun.
So now that you're more of a seasoned driver, you know what to expect and what not to get yourself into, like taking a guy 30 minutes away. When he says he just lives where? Downtown?
Yeah, he said a couple blocks away. I live downtown off of Main Street.
He meant a couple towns away is what he meant.
Yeah, he meant a couple towns.
So now let's transition into, you're getting big into the cornhole scene. And I guess I kind of want to know how it all came about, because you and me, we've played some sports together, like volleyball, basketball, and a couple others, and now you transitioned into this. How did you get into cornhole now?
So honestly, the biggest thing that got me in the corner would have been my in-laws. When my wife and I first started dating, I want to say, I think it was the first year of dating or maybe the second, but they have a family reunion that they do out in Cassville, Wisconsin every year. Ironically, we've only been there twice since we started dating. We've just never gotten out there. But the first year that they took me, they have an annual bags tournament that they do. And they rigged it so that I would be paired with my now father-in-law, and we ended up winning it. But they did that. My wife did that purposely to try to, get us bonding,
Sure.
start talking and everything. But that was the first time I'd ever actually thrown a bag. And just like anyone, when they first start, I crumpled it up and threw it like an actual ball.
Right, yeah.
Because that's how everyone starts. But that's where the fire first started. And it was a couple of years later where I really didn't do anything with it. It was just more kind of casual. It wasn't until I moved to Duluth for school and that randomly on Facebook I saw that somebody, which now is one of the biggest cornhole clubs in Minnesota, but it was their first year starting, was Twin Ports Cornhole, was, hey, we're starting a cornhole group looking for people to play in a winter league. And I thought it was very interesting. I remember a couple years ago that I thought it was pretty halfway decent. I figured, this would be a great way to do something outside of school and whatnot. And right before I started joining that club, College of St. Scholastica also had a small little cornhole tournament, and I paired up with one of my classmates and my buddies, and we also won it. So I was kind of coming off of a high, like, hey, you know what? I just won a tournament before. Let's kind of see what this upper level cornhole stuff is. Went there, met with new people. Josh Johnson, who runs Twin Ports Cornhole, shout out to you, man. He's awesome, and he runs a great club. And I lived for about a year. I just threw basically like 3-4 times a week with that club and just ended up developing a love for it. I call it a sport. Some people want to call it a hobby. We can go back and forth, whatever you want to define as a sport. It's on ESPN, so I will live and die by that. It's on ESPN. It's a sport.
Right.
But that's kind of where it all started. And then, I mean, I don't want to say it was an addiction, but ask my wife, it is an addiction. But that's kind of where it started. And then when I moved back down to Winona, I searched for other cornhole clubs, Cooley region. And then I wasn't even aware of this, but there was a cornhole tournament for Steamboat Days. It's been going on for like a decade. I was never even aware of it. And then I heard shortly after I moved to Winona, because I think I moved to Winona in May, and Steamboat Days is what, June?
June, yep. Right around Father's Day.
So right around there, I heard there was a cornhole tournament, and actually, if you remember, that's when we threw together for the Cooley region.
Yep. I was on your team one year.
Yeah, you were on my team for a season. And that's actually, ironically, where I now met my main partner, Tyler, was there. And him and I actually threw against each other in the very first game. Had no idea who he was, but he threw really well. We were back and forth against us. Our partners weren't exactly the best. Riley, you were my partner. You kind of sucked.
Oh, Riley.
Shout out to Riley, my brother-in-law. But him and I were going back and forth and through very well. At the end of the tournament, I scrolled back on the app that we were using to keep track of scores and whatnot, and I searched for Tyler Kamrowski. I was like, this guy's pretty good. And I shot him a message on Facebook. It's like, hey, man, do you want to throw together? And now we're about almost 2 years together as about a year and a half now together as partners. I mean, we've traveled pretty far for what most people would consider a cornhole. I mean, we've gone to the Twin Cities. We've gone to Madison. We've probably gone about, it was about 3 hours away. So, but professional cornhole players will travel all over the country. But basically, that's kind of, long story short, how everything started, and that's currently where I am, which I think is going to transition into our next thing, is that this podcast that I'm on, this awesome podcast, is also one of our sponsors for this year. Tyler and I were chatting a couple of months ago about, hey, you know what? There's not really much of a cornhole scene in Winona. You have your bar leagues. So, I mean, like EB's runs the biggest bar league in Winona, and you've also got the Goodview Bar. You got Poots. You've got just down the road.
Brickyard?
Yeah, Brickyard,
Yep.
But even right before Brickyard, Sloppy Joe's also runs a small one as well. But no one in Winona actually has a full-blown cornhole league like Highway 218 out in Rochester, Austin, or Cooley region out in La Crosse.
Sure.
So Tyler and I were talking, what's the best way if we actually legit want to start a cornhole club in Winona? We got to get sponsors, because we're not going to be able to afford it all on our own. Help us help you. But before we go and start a cornhole club, we should probably establish relationships with some local businesses as actual cornhole players and actual as people. So we kind of branched out, and I know Chris here. You also got Jacobson Real Estate, him and his father. So I kind of figured it was like a 2-for-1. Actually, when I reached out to you, I didn't even ask you about the podcast. It was about Jacobson Real
Right,
Estate.
yeah. And I figured might as well hop on with the podcast at the same time because, you know, you travel places, we might get a lead. Probably very rarely will we get a lead off of it for real estate. But Brews and Crews podcast, someone sees it, they might go, hey, what's that? And you can shoot them right to your episode, and they'd be like, oh, okay, maybe they'll check out more if they see it on the sleeve or wherever the placement is going to be. But I figured that would be probably a little bit of a better one, but also having the real estate company in there makes sense too because this doesn't generate any money yet. So, Not yet. I'm working on it, though.
Getting the LLC soon?
I should probably get an LLC for sure, especially when we got signage outside now and all that. But I want to go back off of your early days of cornhole. So how many years ago was that when your wife partnered you up with your father-in-law?
That would have been summer of 2020. Summer of 2020? No, 2019. No.
Okay.
18. Summer of 2018.
Okay, so about 6 years you've been doing this.
Yeah, so that's when I first started. But competitively, I've been now playing for a little over 2 years now. Because like I said, it would have been right at the beginning of fall, winter in 2022.
So competitively, you've only been doing this for like 2 years.
Competitively, I've only been doing this for about 2 years. Yeah.
Okay, so
casually 6 years.
Going off of that, when you first started, what do you remember like a misconception that you had of cornhole? Because here's what a lot of misconceptions are, and it could be this for some people. It's just a drinking beer sport is all it is. And I played competitively with you 2 summers ago. It was more than that. There's strategies that I didn't understand because I was just like you when I first, you played cornhole at a family function or whatever, just kind of throwing it, hoping it lands and all that. There was more strategy to it. But what was like one of your first misconceptions of the way you thought of cornhole compared to, oh, this is what it's actually like?
I guess my misconception was if I put it in the hole, like that's like I'm gonna win the round. Was like the goal is to put it on the board, but if you can get one, heck, if you could even get 2 bags in the hole, like it's gonna be a pretty quick game if you can do that. And at the very, very like social level, sure, but when you start getting into competitive, I mean, I've played people that have thrown a perfect game against me. Put all 4 bags in the hole for like 10 rounds. So like I've played people who put 40 bags in a row on me.
Whoa.
And usually those are your pros, but there are still some, even just some, I don't want to say amateur, but that's technically what it would be called. If you're not a pro, you're technically an amateur.
Right,
There's also advanced, which is kind of like in between. But that was a misconception that I had, was that if I put it in the hole, I'm going to win, and no. And then another misconception, too, is that there's defense in cornhole.
Yep.
So, very much so. It's there are different type of players. So there are offensive players and there are defensive mindset players. I, myself, am a little bit more defensive-minded because I can't throw 40 bags in the hole. Even on my best day, I can't do that. And there are some people that can do that with their eyes closed. So in order to beat those people, you have to play defense. And what that means is you got to put a bag in their lane so that you give them something to look at and something to block. Because if you give them an open hole, they'll just throw 4 bags on you all day and you're going to lose.
Sure.
So a defensive one is where you purposely put a blocker up and then you go over the top with airmails, which I'm not that strong at, or you cut or roll over the bag, which I'm starting to get better at doing. So that's another thing I didn't know, is that there's actually, like I said, strategies in offensive and defensive mindset players. And then the other thing, too, is same thing, cornhole is supposed to be you have a beer in your hand and you throw. Yeah, at the social division, but when you start playing competitive people, no, nobody drinks. Because there are some people, this is literally what they do for a living. Mm-hmm. There are some pros who make 6 figures a year through winnings, sponsorships, and all that, and that's literally what they do for a living. Well, you're obvious, just like if you show up to work, you're not going to show up intoxicated because this is your job.
Right. Yep.
Same thing. These pros, they take it seriously. Let's see. The ACL has 16 national tournaments throughout the year, so they fly. One weekend they might be in San Diego, and then 2 weeks later they might be all the way down in San Antonio, Texas, or they may be in Miami, Florida, wherever it might be. And then they practice probably 20, 30 hours a week as well. So they're for those of you you might have seen ESPN, especially during COVID. COVID is really where cornhole kind of got its rise because, everybody was inside watching random shows. You got through Netflix, all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to flip on ESPN. What's on ESPN? All of a sudden there's cornhole. You're like, oh, like there's an actual like professional thing for this thing, and that's kind of where it started to take off. And now that I've actually, like I said, I've played in some ACL tournaments, I've met pros. There's a whole nother world to this sport that people at bar leagues have absolutely no idea what it really takes to do this. But it's fun. I mean, I tell people, if you really want to get into this thing, like be prepared to get your ass kicked. It's happened to me. I've been skunked. Skunked meaning like I lose 21-0. That's a phrase we have. But I've lost 21-0 in like 6 rounds, and it sucks. But guess what? You flip it the other way. You're never going to get any better if you're just kicking everyone else's ass. So
right.
If you want to actually, I'm never going to be good enough to be a pro. I've been in this long enough to know that I'm not going to be good enough to ever be at the professional level. But again, it's a hobby of mine that takes me, like I said, I'm going to Diamond Joe's this coming Saturday with actually Scott Costner, who's actually another local thrower.
Yep, I know Scott.
You know Scott, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I actually met Scott at Eby's this summer when Tyler and I were throwing. And Scott, shout out to you, dude. You're a good thrower, and I've kind of been watching you on Scoreholio. Your SBR is going up, dude, and we're throwing together. I'm looking forward to it. We're in the top division just based on our SBR scores. I know you may not know what that is, but he knows what that is. So we may get our asses kicked this weekend because there's a couple of pro teams that are going to be at Diamond Joe's. But you know what? I'm just happy that there's someone other than Tyler. And then there's also Jeff and Ann Bezek, who also travel around. They don't travel as much as Tyler and I do, but they're also phenomenal throwers. So I'm just happy that there's someone outside the 4 of us who's actually willing to travel outside of Winona, heck, even outside of La Crosse to go throw. So even if we don't do that well, just the fact that we're starting to get the ball rolling, which is what Tyler and I are trying to do with our sponsorships, it's awesome. So no matter what Scott and I do this weekend, I view it as a win because we're finally starting to get something going in Winona. Fingers crossed.
Well, that's really nice that you have that, and someone's willing to travel because I assume you're playing for some sort of prize. You're not just playing for the heck of it. That'd be recess. So I assume there's some sort of prize money at the end of it if you win. So what's like considered a big prize if you were to win? Is there like does every one of them different?
Yeah, I mean, depending on how many teams are determined, and like buy-ins meaning your tournament entry fee. So like Cooley Region runs during the summer. Cooley Region will run very basic, small local tournaments kind of things where maybe 20 teams will show up. The buy-in is $10, maybe $20. So in those kind of tournaments, if you take first place, you're maybe walking out with like $150. So split between 2 people, 50 to 75. But like this one at Diamond Joe's, this is they cut it off at 132 teams, but it's an $80 buy-in for the top tier, and then it's $60 and $40 for the middle and lower. Diamond Joe's contributed an extra $2,000. So like a tournament like this, if you take first place in the upper tier, I mean, you're probably looking at like $1,000, I would say. Maybe, maybe more, depending on, I'm not exactly sure right off the top of my head. And then you got your really, really big tournaments. Like about a month or 2 ago, Tyler and I went down to the Dells for Badgerland, and that was 350 teams, I think.
Whoa.
And the buy-in was, I want to say $100 per team, something like that. So I don't know the exact payout, but the team that ended up winning it, which actually currently is the number 1 ranked team in the world. I say world because there are some cornhole going on across seas, like in India and Australia and whatnot, but it's kind of like the same thing in the NFL when they say we're world champs.
Yeah.
I mean, is it really world champs? But you still say it. But they're the number 1 team in the world, and actually Tyler and I ended up playing them in rounders. I got 2 points on Jay Rubin. Shout out to Jay Rubin, and he got 2 points on Ryan Schrader. So we didn't get skunked. But anyways,
against pros.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they're pros.
Okay.
Ryan Schrader, I would have to check rankings, but Ryan Schrader, like I said, they're the number 1 doubles team in the world as of right now, I still think. And Ryan Schrader, he's a 14, 15-year-old kid who's like a top 10 player in the world.
Jeez.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. These kids, I'm going to say kids because y'all kids.
They're less than 18 years old.
They don't have jobs.
Right.
And I guarantee, and when you're traveling around the country, guess what? You're not playing basketball. You're not playing baseball. So what are you doing outside of school? Nothing. You're just throwing bags for 6 hours a day versus people 9 to 5.
Right.
9 to 5 workers don't have that luxury unless it's your full-time job.
Sure.
But I imagine in that tournament they probably walked out with like a couple grand a piece. Probably. I'm guessing. I don't know for sure. I'm gonna ballpark, it probably was like close to $5,000 was probably like the top
And
payout.
both people were less than 18 years old.
No, Jay Rubin's like in his 30s, 40s, something like that.
Okay.
But Ryan, again, and that's another kind of cool thing if you think about it. Like, think of what sport that has teams of two where you can have a 14-year-old kid and some mid-40s guy teaming up.
Right.
There was another one too, another pro team in the ACL where Braden Wilson and I'm failing to forget the other guy's name. I'm sorry but Braden Wilson, again, same thing. He was number 3 ranked in the world at one point. And he was 12 years old.
Whoa. Well, that's the one thing I was going to say is like cornhole, I mean, you basically can play until you can't really swing your arm anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There's really no, like basketball. Eventually the time comes, or football, you just can't keep up with the young guys. But this one, it's literally skill-based, and it's underhand throwing. And like you said, there's other sorts of strategies. There's defense, which when I played, I didn't know what the heck you're talking about at first. And I'm like, what do you mean play defense? Like, get in his lane. And I'm like, oh, a block. And then after I got going after a while, I'm like, oh, this all makes sense now. This is great. So there is strategies to it. It's like a little bit of a chess game sometimes, especially when you're playing against top-ranked players. You got to have some defense of some sort.
Yeah, and then that's another thing too. I've never gotten to this point, but I mean, I've gone to weekend tournaments where I'm there from 10 a.m. till midnight. I've had tournaments like that before. I mean, you're there for 14 hours. You're playing 14, 15 games sometimes. It is mentally exhausting sometimes.
Sure.
And you got to remember these national tournaments that the ACL runs. They do a blind draw on Friday, a doubles on Saturday, and then singles on Sunday. So, I mean, and if you're pros who make it all the way to the end in all 3 events, I mean, you're talking about being there at like noon on Friday, and you're there till 11 p.m., and then you're going to bed, and then you're waking up at 7 a.m., and then you're there from 8 a.m. till 10 p.m., 11 p.m., then you're going to bed, and you're doing it all over again. So there is, when you get to the highest level of cornhole, it's no longer like just being able to physically stand and throw. It is 100% a mental game, and that's kind of where you just rely on the muscle memory, because at that point you're not even really thinking about what you're doing, you're just throwing. And I mean, there are some games too. Last year, the ACL number 1 ranked, I would say number 1 ranked, the most number 1 voted on as the best game of the year was between Matt Guy and Jeremiah Ellis. And that was a game that I want to say it went 47 rounds, singles, so 47 rounds. So that means they went down and back like 24 times, throwing bags. And so for those of you who don't know, and even for those of you who don't know cornhole, and even those who do, like this statistic is just unbelievable. 47 rounds they threw. Both of them threw over an 11 PPR. PPR meaning points per round. So if you put 3 bags in the hole and 1 on, that's 10 points. So that means these guys basically threw 4 bags in the hole, and then the next round they threw 3 in the hole and 1 on, and they maintained that for 47 rounds.
That is pretty impressive, especially
it's insane.
If you play and you can't even get it into the hole, and these guys are doing it on average.
I mean, I've had games where I've thrown over an 11, but that lasted 4 or 5, maybe 6 rounds. But to do it for 47, but that's what I'm talking about. When you get to the highest level, it is. And they did that at the end of a very long day where they were both there from like 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. So you're talking about 12 hours of sitting there waiting, and then to go and throw that well for that long. That's what I'm saying. It is. I know I've been playing long enough, though I'll never be able to reach that level. So my goal is to have fun, win a little bit of money, and try to just grow the sport in this area. That's ultimately my goal.
Sure.
Because I'm never going to be traveling the country for it. And I don't know if I really want to. And that's the thing people also got to realize at the professional level. Like, only like 10%, a ballpark number, I don't know for sure. But only like the top players actually like make money off of being a pro. Because sponsors help, but they don't cover all your airfare, your hotels, your food, your buy-ins and everything. So only your top tier pros are actually making money doing this. Think of it as the NBA, right? You have your pros. And then you have your pros. You have the pros that sit on the bench that play maybe 15 minutes an entire season. Sure. And then you have your Steph Currys, your Doncic, your Joel Embiids, who are, MVP candidates. Same thing in the world of cornhole, too. There are your pros that are pros, but you're never going to see them on the podium, and then you got the ones that are like winning it every single week, and those are the ones who make money. And the bottom ones, they don't. Why they stick around and do it? It's because they love the game and they have a passion for it. But for me personally, I feel like financially, unless you're doing really well with your other job, your risk reward, in my opinion, doesn't really weigh out the scales. But again, if you're really loving it and you're having fun, you're meeting people, by all means, go ahead and do it. But from a financial standpoint, most of your pros end up losing money than actually making money.
Sure, yeah, because you got to travel. You're basically an independent contractor running around doing all this. Now, I had a question because you keep talking about pros and amateurs, and I obviously know what the difference is between pro and amateur when it comes to NFL, NBA. How do you become pro in cornhole? What's the process?
So there are multiple ways to become a pro. Probably the most common way that people become pros is at the end of the season. Each state, depending on if they're eligible, there's some eligibility requirements for some states. It's the politics of it. I don't know exactly what the logistics are, but so let me retract. 2 years ago, Minnesota had one pro. Lexi Hugeback was our Minnesota's first pro, and now 2 years later, now we have 4 pros. We have Dia Lee up in the Twin Cities for Hmong Cornhole. We have Hunter Thornton, don't know what cornhole club he belongs to, and then you also got Owen Crick, who just recently got his pro status, and actually Dia too. Side note, Dia, shout out to Dia, won Worlds for women's singles this last summer. So that's how she got her pro chip. So every year, ACL was founded in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Their first tournament of the year starts there, and then they do Worlds at the end of the year where it's open. Anyone can come and play, and they have certain events that you have to qualify for, and then they have certain events that anyone can play. But Dia got her pro chip by taking first at women's singles, so that's awesome for her. Lexi got her pro status by going back to what I was saying. They have like a pro qualifying state tournament where only one person gets that chip. Lexi got it 2 years ago, and that's how Owen got his. And then Hunter Thornton got his, I believe, from accruing points throughout the year. So the ACL, like I said, they have 16 national tournaments. When you go to these tournaments, depending on how well you do, you accrue points, whether it be in doubles, blind draw, or singles. And if you accrue enough points over the year, you become a pro.
Okay.
I believe that's how Hunter got his. And then the third and final one is they have a pro qualifying tournament at Worlds. Again, open to anyone, and they call it the Gauntlet because you have like 500-600 people trying to claim 32 spots.
Okay.
And how they did it this year was they had 8 rounds of rounders. If you went 6-0 through your rounders, you automatically got your pro chip. So 16 people got it, and then the people who went like 5-3 or whatnot, they played in like a single game, single elimination tournament, and they went all the way to the final 16. So there are multiple ways to get your pro status. Like I said, one is local, another one is just traveling around and accruing points, and then the other one is going to like the big invitational tournament where anyone in the country can do it. But the one for state is you have to actually live in that state.
Okay.
So someone from Wisconsin can't come over to a Minnesota tournament and take it. Like you have to actually be a resident in Minnesota. Got to show an ID that proves you live there.
Sure.
So those are the 3 ways that I know of to become a pro. There might be another 1 or 2, but those are the main ones.
Someone can comment below and let us know if there is. So then a question for you then, can you get your pro chip taken away?
Yes, your pro chip can be taken away if you don't accrue enough points throughout the year. I mean, obviously, if you have any like allegations against you or you talk bad about the ACL, I mean, in theory, they could take it away. If you had there was one. I don't remember the name. I don't want to say the name in case if I'm wrong. But there is a pro that just recently went to prison for like sexual allegations or something like that for like 20 years. Well, obviously he's going to get his pro chip taken away.
Right.
There was another pro who was also cheating. So just like in the world of sports, you can gamble. Guess what? You can also gamble on cornhole, oddly enough.
Obviously,
you can. You can bet on players winning. You can bet on their PP. You can bet on anything in sports these days.
Sure.
And there was one pro who was cheating when punching in numbers. So, at the end of a round, you're supposed to punch in how many points you have. So what he would do was if if you washed out the round, wash meaning you and your opponent tie. So if he threw an 8 and his opponent threw an 8, he'd put in a 12 and he put in a 12 for the other person. It doesn't affect the score, but it affects your own individual score and your PPR and whatnot.
Sure.
And he was doing that at tournaments, and he got caught, and so he was banned from the ACL for a year, and his pro status was taken away. So yes, there are ways you can do that. If you don't play enough times too, like if you have to meet a minimum requirement to maintain your pro status, as in you have to show up to a certain amount of tournaments. So yeah, there are ways you can lose it. You can also retire and come back. Jay Rubin did that as well. He won the world's doubles with his pro partner Jordan Power, and then he stepped away from the game for a year or two just because, again, you're away from your family a lot.
Sure.
And then he came back this year, paired up with Ryan Trader, and now he's back to being #1 doubles team in the world. So yeah, there are ways that you can lose your pro status and also get it back.
Okay. Now, one thing I didn't realize is when we started playing together is that there's different bags. And that blew my mind, and I think you brought some along with to show. But I want to just explain from my vantage point how I felt. You came with a whole case of different bags to throw, and I go, well, I got so many. You go, well, this one has more friction than this one. This one you want to throw if it's in this conditions. We were outside when we were doing our league, so sometimes when the sun would go down, it would get a little moist out there, so you had to throw a slicker bag. And then there was other times when it was very dry, we had to throw something that had a little bit more tack to it. And I'm like, holy cow, I had no idea. So just like any sport, there's different bags to throw or different equipment to have. I had no idea about this, and I noticed you had some along you can show for those who are watching, but you'll definitely have to go into a little bit of detail for those who are listening, because you brought, how many did you bring there?
So I brought two bags.
Two different types?
The brand so just like in sports, you have your Adidas, your Puma, your Nike, same thing in the world of cornhole. You have different brands for produce different bags. Me personally, I like to throw BG. My partner likes to throw BG as well, and it just so happens we both like to throw the same bag from BG. But you have other brand companies out there, like you have Lucky's, you have Ultra, you have what's another one that I'm missing? Titan, et cetera, et cetera. So BG stands for Bag Gods. But like you said, there are different bags that have different speeds. So like one may be slower, which is more for people who are defensive minded. Then you have bags that are a little bit faster for people who like to go hole for hole. You have carpet, you have non-carpet, you have different fills. So for people who like to roll bags like I do, you want something that has a little bit of a bouncier fill, which is if you're somebody who can't throw a flat bag, you don't want a bouncy fill. Because if you can't throw a flat bag and you have a bouncy fill, the bag is going to like bounce or cut on you or kick off of you. So yeah, the BG I think has like, I don't know, maybe like 10 or 12 different types of bags. Sure,
let me see one of those. I want to feel that one.
So these are the main bags that I like to throw. These are not the ones that Tyler like. This specific one doesn't. He doesn't like throw. But these are the Wizard L's. I like these because I just like the way they feel in my hand, first of all. But speed-wise, they're perfect at around a 6.9. So a 6.9 meaning 6 on the slow, 9 on the fast side. So bags are rated on a scale of 1 to 12. Almost no bag goes over 10, but there are a few that go over 10.
So each side has a different tack to it.
Yes. So this is like, so if you are wanting to, I want to say be more defensive minded, you kind of throw on the slow side. This is where you throw your blocks, your cuts, your rolls. And if you want to just go hole for hole, because the slicker side you throw on, the easier it's going to go in the hole.
Sure.
Because if it's slicker, it's going to fall in the hole easier, versus if it's tackier, it might get caught up on the hole, and then you got to go and get it, whether you got to, airmail it to drag it, or you got to like hit it a little bit for the beads to go up and then fall back down.
Okay.
But these are the ones that I mainly like to throw.
All right.
These are the other ones that I've just recently kind of started throwing over a couple months ago. These are the Mercenary L's, and these are slower. So these are a 4.9. So they're
a 9 on this side.
Yeah, 9 on the fast side and a 4 on that side.
So what I would consider the back is your defensive side, and your front is what I would consider where the logo's at. It would be your offensive side.
At the basic level, yes,
Yep,
that's basically what it would be. But if you look at it too, if you look on the slow sides, they're different carpet material. So the Wizard L is a herringbone carpet versus the Mercenary is more of a traditional carpet. Traditional carpet is generally going to be a little bit slower than herringbone, not always. But again, different type of so again, there's non-carpet and carpet, and then when you have carpet, you can also have a different type of carpet. So like you said, there are a lot of bags, a lot of modifications, all for different styles of throwing. And people tell me, or they'll tell me, I've had people ask me like, hey, what's the proper way to throw a bag? There is none. There is no proper way to throw a bag. It's what works for you. And I tell you, if I had $1 for every time I've changed my throw, I probably could have walked away from this game with well over $1,000 in my hand. I have thrown, and I got to stop doing that, by the way. Tyler's had the same throw since I started throwing with him, and he still throws the same way. I've changed my throw a bunch of times, and I got to stop doing that. But going back to what I'm saying is there's no right way to throw a bag. Some people don't throw a flat bag, and it looks like a dying duck in the air. But guess what? If it gets in the hole, it goes in the hole. You know what I mean? If a bag looks pretty in the air, nice and flat, perfect, and it goes in the hole, versus somebody who throws a freaking like shark fin bag.
Shark fin would be an end over end, I would say.
Yeah,
they call
like
it end over end.
Like a shark fin throw.
Yep.
And it goes in the hole. It's still worth 3 points. You don't get extra points for looking pretty in the air. So, I always tell people if you want to throw a flat bag, kind of start and finish with your palm up, and then make the modifications that you have to. But no matter how you throw, there's a bag out there that'll fit you best. It may take you a while to find the right bag. Like for me personally, I've probably burned hundreds of dollars, maybe even. Sorry if you're gonna hear this, Rainey, but I've probably burned maybe over $1,000 in bags that I've bought because trying to find the right bag that works for me. And I finally found it between Tyler and I, the Wizard L, and we found the right brand. We like the Mercenaries. So sometimes, and that's the other thing too, people don't realize is depending on where you're at, board conditions can change. So if you go into a tournament, let's say there's 100 people in the room. When you first get there, boards can be pretty slick because the humidity is going to be kind of low with not very many people there. So the boards might be really slick. So then you start throwing a slower bag like this. Then after about 3-4 hours with 100 people in the room, humidity starts to go up, and all of a sudden the boards start to slow down, where this starts to get too slow, where I start throwing it normally, but it keeps coming up short in the hole.
Sure.
Then I got to switch to a different bag and throw something faster. So sometimes it's not always about your throw, its board conditions can also depend on what bags you throw. And that can vary from if you're outside or inside, how many people are in there. Another one is also the type of finish. So one board can be really fast and the other one might be really slow, and that's just because the polyethylene finish might be slightly different, or maybe it's made with different wood, whatever it may be. So it's always good to have. I always bring at least 3 or 4 sets of bags with me, maybe sometimes 6, because your throw may not change, but the board conditions might, and you need to have bags to help accommodate for that change so you can still maintain the same throw. Because the last thing you want to do is have one set of bags and all of a sudden board conditions change, and then you start to change your throw mid-tournament. That is going to screw with you more than anything will.
So when you're playing with a partner, you guys have to stick with the same bags, right? You can't like switch halfway through. When your partner's up, he's like, all right, I'm going to throw these ones now. You have to stick with the same ones, right?
No. As soon as you start the game, you have to stick with the same bags until the end of the game. Now, you have a warm-up period. We call them down and backs in Cornhole. You can throw the bags down and back once or twice to get a feel for the board. And it's happened a bunch of times where Tyler and I are throwing the same bag throughout the entire day, and then we get to a set of boards, and they're faster or slower than what we've been playing with the entire day, and we're like, hey, we got to switch bags. And then we switch bags, throw it down and back, and then be like, okay, we're good to go. But yes, when you start the game, you cannot switch bags. And some people have tried to argue about whether or not that rule should be changed. Personally, I think it should stay the same. Now, if you're doing a tournament where it's like best 2 out of 3, sometimes this varies from director to director. Some directors say no, you have to stick with the same bags the entire match, and some directors say no, you can change it. But again, when the game starts, until one person reaches 21, you have to stick with that bag until the end of the match.
Now, how much are bags? Like, how much does a set cost? What are we talking? $100? Talking $50? $1,000? I don't know. No.
Okay. If you're spending $1,000 a bag, you are getting ripped off.
If
you're spending more than $200 a bag, you are getting ripped off. I would, again, different brands, like, you know what I mean? Like, Nike's going to cost more than your Shaq brand from Walmart.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So you have your Shaq brand Walmart bags that you can buy for like $40 or $60. And then you have your more Nike Adidas, like BG. If I had to put like the top like bag companies, I would probably say BG is probably your Nike or your Adidas of it. They're the top three. So you're gonna you're paying for the brand. You're gonna be paying a little bit more. I want to say I spent these Mercenary L's were second handed to me, almost brand new when I got them. I think I spent like $90 or $100 on them, but brand new they would probably be like 120, maybe 130.
Okay.
So you're looking at anywhere from $180 to $120 for a brand new set, depending on where you go with. If you've already found the bag that you know you like and you found the brand you like, I recommend buying brand new. You're familiar with the bag, you're familiar with the brand, you know how to break in. There's also different ways to. That's another thing too. When you get brand new bags, they're stiff.
You gotta break them in.
You gotta break them in. There are different ways to break in bags as well. Just like anything else, there's always a bunch of stuff.
Just like a baseball glove, you gotta break it in at some point.
Exactly. That's a good comparison. Some people like to break in their baseball gloves differently.
Yep.
Same thing with the bags. But if you're just getting started and you don't know what you want, don't make the mistake that I did and just start buying brand new bags thinking you're gonna like them. Buy them secondhand. Buy ones that look really bad but are still in good condition to throw, and start to figure out what you want. A really great way to figure that out if you're just getting started in the sport is to go to local blind draws. So a blind draw is basically you get paired with a random partner. And it's great because it's a great way to meet people. But secondly, it's a great way to figure out what bags you like, because the person to your right is going to throw a different bag than the person to your left. And if you don't know if you're a fast or slow bag, carpet versus non-carpet, that kind of thing, it's great to throw with a bunch of different bags and start to get a feel for what you want to do. And it's a great way to cheaply, actually, it's almost free if you want to think about it. Yeah, you got to pay your tournament fee, but you're not paying to use somebody else's bag.
Sure.
So that is my recommendation. Don't make the mistake that I did and go head first on the deep end and start like finding what you want. Buy used, buy cheap, and go to blind draws and figure out what you want to do. And then when you figured out what bag works for you, then I recommend to buy brand new, because then you don't got to worry about if somebody did something stupid to the bag and is it going to rip. And most of these bag companies too, because it happens, like sometimes you throw on a board that has a snag on it and you rip your bag open. It's happened once or twice to me. Most of these bag companies, if you bought brand new, if you bought secondhand, you're screwed. But if you bought brand new, you can message these bag companies, and 90% of the time they will refund you and send you a new one. So that's why I recommend buying brand new when you know what bags you want to throw, because if that does happen, you're fine with buying brand new.
Sure. Now I got a question about a rule, and this is one that I don't know what the actual rule is for it, but you play to 21.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of times you play in a backyard and they go, you got to get directly on 21 or else you go back down to 10 or 11 or 15. What's the actual rule in real cornhole? Is it just got to get 21 or more, or is it got to hit it right on the dot?
So I'll answer that question with a side answer to it. So, because I've had people be like, what's the difference between bean bags and cornhole? And my best answer to that is, it's like the difference between if you go to college and you have your actual D1, D2, whatever it may be, your actual collegiate team versus intramural. You both are basically playing the same game, but there's a very different rules and regulations. It's the same thing with bean bags and cornhole. Bean bags is, it may be these nice professional sets, or it may be might actually be cornhole filled bags that you find at your barbecue spot. They may be smaller boards, really bouncy boards, and maybe 27 feet apart, maybe 20 feet apart. Bean bags is kind of a free-for-all. Anyone can kind of make up the rules as they go along.
Sure.
Cornhole, there are set rules that you have to follow. Boards have to be 27 feet apart, front to front. Boards have to be 2 feet by 4 feet. The actual width of the board cannot be more than 3/4 of an inch if it has no cross beams, and I want to say it's like 2/3 or something like that with a cross beam, something like in those areas. The bags, they can't be more than 16.5 ounces, can't be less than 15.5 ounces. You get my point. There are rules and regulations that you have to follow for it to be cornhole, while bean bags, you can do whatever you want. So to answer your question, in the rule of cornhole, it is always a race to 21. There is no bust. Bust is a backyard style barbecue. So you don't have to hit 21 exactly in the competitive world of cornhole. It is just as soon as you get to 21. And it doesn't matter if you get to 21, 25, 27, 31. As As soon as you pass 21, and it doesn't matter what your opponent's score is. It could be 20-20, and you get 1 point, and you get 2 points. You win 22-20.
See, that's a good rule to clear up because everyone goes, "Oh, you got to hit directly on, or else," and then it becomes a strategy at the end, possibly. But I like that you just cleared that up because you're right. The intramural compared to playing college, not professional, but college sports compared to intramurals, totally different. You can play different rules and you can have different regulations. So I like that you said that because there's more to it than I knew. 27 feet apart from nose to nose, or whatever you want to call it, from front to front.
33 from hole to hole.
33 from hole to hole. Bags that be a certain weight, race to 21. So I like that you just cleared that up for a lot of people because when I played with you, I had no idea. I'm like, do I have to hit this? And what do we do? And you just told me, no. You just get there as fast as you possibly can. And then I remember we used to play with your bags. You're like, well, which ones do you want to play with? I go, I don't think it's going to matter for me. Yeah. I'd rather you do better, and I'll just try to figure it out.
I was just trying to be nice.
Yeah, but by the end of the season, though, I mean, I'm competitive, so I started getting competitive. But by the end of the season, I could definitely tell I got a little bit better. And then if I went to go play someone at like a backyard barbecue, it was a little bit easier for me because I understood the strategies behind it. So it was kind of fun to learn that as well. And to me, it was like no pressure. It was kind of just, it was fun. It was backyard style for me because it was outside at a bar. But it was a really fun time actually doing that because I learned so much about it that I had no clue about. So that's where I was at. So now as we're starting to wind down with the podcast here.
I do want to make one quick comment on that.
Yeah, do that.
So with the bust rule, I'll make it quick. I don't mind bust here and there, but the issue with the bust rule is two things. One, these tournaments can go a long time, like 12, 14 hours. You start incorporating a bust rule where they go back down.
Ooh, that'd be rough.
You have no idea how long these tournaments could go if you had a bust rule. I mean, like I say, if you think 12, 14 hours is long, try it. And again, when you get these pros that are going back and forth, you could easily have 2-hour games between them. So that's the main reason why. The second reason why is, in my opinion, it kind of defeats the purpose of the game. Because if you think of cornhole, at its core, what is the goal? To get to 21 first, right? So if I get to 21, if I don't hit 21 exactly and I get bust, I'm getting punished for accomplishing the goal of the game. You know what I mean? It would be like playing basketball, but if I don't make it with just net, if I have to bank it, I lose a point. You know what I mean?
I get it.
It's like you're punishing me for accomplishing the goal of the sport. So that's another reason why I don't like the bust rule, and it helps people who aren't as it punishes the people who are good, because if you're winning 20-4 and all of a sudden you go over 21 and you go back to 15, it gives the team that's losing an opportunity to come back, easier to come back.
It's almost like a handicap.
It's basically what it is. It's a handicap for the team that isn't playing well. So that's why I'm okay with the bust at the lower level, but it will never happen. You will never see bust being implemented at the higher level of cornhole for all those reasons. Sorry to interrupt, but
that's okay.
You were saying.
Well, no, as I was just saying, as we're starting to wind down here, I noticed you got a jersey over there. And is this the jersey that I'll have my logo on?
You will. This is one of the jerseys. I ordered the transfers the other night from a company called Ninjas. They do custom made ones.
Sure.
So yes, this is one of 4 jerseys that I plan on putting on. Tyler has 3 of his own. I'm going to cover my mic here.
That's okay, yeah.
So this is the front of the jersey.
Holy smokes, you guys will stand out.
So you can see BG, like I said. You can even see the bag odds on the side. And the reason why I chose these jerseys to be the ones for our sponsors is because, like you can see, they're very blank. Yeah. I have other jerseys from other various cornhole clubs that already have their sponsors on it. So one, it is my jersey because I bought it, but at the same time, it's representative of another cornhole club. So, like, for instance, I have 3 different Twin Ports cornhole jerseys. All those jerseys have sponsors on them. It would not be ethical for me to just throw on other logos, other sponsors, when they have nothing to do with the actual cornhole club.
Sure.
So BG here, BG is its own entity. It has its own sponsors, but it's different from a local cornhole club. So that's why I chose to do these jerseys, because, like I said, they're blank. They're very nice material. As far as where Brews and Crews podcast will be, as requested, will be on the right, because Tyler and I are both right-handed. So it will be on our right sleeve. The Brews and Crews will be right about here. It's a 3.5 by 3.5 inch stamp. And then same thing, the Jacobson Real Estate will be on the other side on the left. And then we also have other sponsors. So I'll go ahead and shout out as well.
Yeah, shout out the sponsors that are also going to be on there.
So Brews and Crews, obviously, here. We got Jacobs Real Estate. Our 3 other sponsors, ironically, Toppers. Shout out to Phil and Denise. Thank you very much for sponsoring me as well. We also got the Eagles. Lodge 1243, I think that's their lodge number, 1243.
The Winona one?
Yeah, the one here in Winona.
Yep.
They are being nice and sponsoring us as well. And I don't want to say I won't go into the financial portions, but our main sponsor out of everyone is EB's as well. So shout out to Bobby. And like I said, EB's does their own cornhole club cornhole league during the summer. So for those of you watching, if you want to start to get a very nice introduction to what cornhole is, EB's does an awesome, fantastic league. I think they had like 55 teams, something like that. It's more beanbags than it is cornhole. Just an FYI, you're not gonna be running into anyone throwing these bags at that local league, but it's a great introduction. And then EB's as well is also going to be one of our sponsors. So we got 5 for this year, maybe hopefully next year. But again, the ultimate goal here is not so much to just like go to these tournaments and get free entry. That's not our goal, because these tournaments aren't super expensive. For the most part, Tyler and I aren't paying $100 to go to these tournaments and try to win money. Money is nice, but our ultimate goal is to try to grow this sport and specifically bring it to Winona. That's our ultimate goal, and that's why we reached out to sponsors. And again, shout out, thank you very much for Chris at Brews and Crews.
You're welcome.
And fingers crossed, if everything goes the way we want to, Tyler and I are hoping to start a cornhole club in a couple of years. But like I said, we got to start somewhere.
That's right.
And starting with local sponsors as players, and then maybe a couple years down the road, maybe we develop an actual cornhole club. But again, a cornhole club is not going to survive here in Winona if we don't start to get the actual people who come to these bar leagues to start participating in bags. And actually, another thing too is, it's not official yet, but I'm still waiting on the word. I'm looking to actually be a BG representative for Southeast Minnesota, because I love this brand. I love Rich Chamness, who's one of the owners. Rich, I've talked to Rich personally before. He's awesome. His kid, Cash Chamness, by the way, is looking to be this year the youngest pro ever. He's I think 9 years old.
Oh wow!
This kid throws fire, and he's 9, I want to say.
Jeez.
I mean, this kid's like, you see him on the broadcast. He's like 3 feet tall, and he's like bringing the bag all the way up past his head because he has to, because he's that small. But man, I like BG, and the nice thing is, if I can become a BG rep, I get special rates and everything for buying bags. So if we are able to start a cornhole club, obviously people have to start buying professional bags. We can't have people throwing these woven seamed bags at
Right. Yep.
Me as a BG rep, if I'm able to get that, means I can help people buy new bags or throw bags, test them out before they buy them, and buy them at a cheaper rate. So that's the ultimate goal for all of this, is to try to bring this sport here to Winona. And ironically, fingers crossed, it's projected to right now to be an Olympic sport in 2032.
I heard about that.
As of right now, it's. I mean, you got to go through the Olympic Committee and everything. For those of you who watched the Summer Olympics, you saw the fucked up breakdancing. Like if that can be an Olympic sport, come on. You might roll your eyes when I say cornhole might be an Olympic sport, but come on. If that's in the Olympics, you're telling me you can't have this. But the biggest thing about it being an Olympic sport is we got to, and the ACL is starting to do this, they're getting there, but we got to have more countries involved. You can't have an Olympic sport where only one team is basically rules 95% of everything. So like I said, they're starting to get things in Australia. They've done some in Italy. They've done some in the UK. India is starting to come up with their own professional. And that's why I said 8 years from now, like if you're talking 4 years from now, there's no way it's not going to be able to grow enough. But 8 years, if you look where cornhole basically didn't exist 8 years ago. I mean, it was around, but there was no such thing as a professional cornhole player 8 years ago. So, and now you've seen where it's gone 8 years from then. Who's to say it can't be an Olympic sport 8 years from now if we have stupid Australian women doing the weird thing on breakdancing on it. So, hey, you know what? And that's a cool thing too. You might think about it. You know, for those of you out there who are looking to get into it, if you want to be an Olympic athlete without going through all the absolute horrible, I don't say horrible, but the intense training that these athletes have to go through, hey, there's an Olympic sport where you might be able to actually have a beer and participate in. And for, I don't know, as an American, that sounds pretty awesome.
That sounds great. Now, lastly, what's your first tournament of the year that you guys will be doing?
Our first sponsored tournament, I should say, because like I said, I'm going to Diamond Joe's with Scott, but Scott's not my
But this will be out after that, actually. So this won't come out until I think the 13th of January. So
actually, look it up. It's January 18th, I believe, will be our first sponsored.
So this actually will come out the Monday before your first tournament, I believe.
There we go.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, Tyler and I played in this tournament last year. We took third place.
Where's the location?
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay.
It is the 4th annual BBB SNW tournament. I don't know what it stands for, but it's Chippewa Valley Cornhole on January 18th in Eau Claire at the Metropolis Resort and Conference Center. So that will be our first tournament as sponsored players. I've got a busy 6 weeks coming up. I got Diamond Joe's this coming Saturday with Scott. I've got an Ice in the Hole rotating partners tournament for Cooley region. That's their first of their 5 big tournaments that they do at the beginning of the season. Then the next Saturday is that one up in Eau Claire. Then I have a week off. Then I got a 4-man crew cup tournament as well at Moose Lodge. And then after that, I've got a 2-day weekend tournament at Austin for the Toss for a Cure. So I've got 5 tournaments in 6 weeks.
That's great, though. That's
what
we want for sponsorships.
Like, it's going to be, about to say, only one, wait a minute, no, 2 of those 5 will actually be sponsored because the rotating partners, I'm on my own. Well, actually, I take that back. No, that would be a sponsored tournament. But the 4-man Valley it's 4-person team. I know. I just opened the door. Yes, guess what? There's singles, there's doubles, and guess what? There's 4-man tournaments and there's 8-man tournaments as well in this one. So long story short, 4-man is 2 people on one side, you throw 2 bags. 8-man tournaments, 4 people on each side, you throw 1 bag. 8-man tournaments are fun, but super nerve-wracking because guess what? You get 1 bag and 1 bag only.
That'd be rough.
Because
you get no groove.
It's the thing. You get absolutely no rhythm, no groove because that's how it is with Cornhole. Like maybe you throw your first bag really bad, but guess what? You got 3 more to throw. When you're in an 8-man, you throw that first bag off the board or off the back. That's it. You're done. It's nerve-wracking. But yes, so that's what I've got coming up here in the next month and a half. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to starting 2025 off with a bang and hopefully make a little bit of money. But again, at the end of the day, it's not about the money. It is about trying to grow this sport and try to bring Cornhole to Winona. So for those of you who are watching and do go to any of those bar leagues that I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, if you're seriously interested in wanting to try to do things outside Winona, my name is Caleb Forst. You can shoot me a message on Facebook. You'll see me right away. My profile picture is literally me at the Minnesota State Cornhole Tournament with my wife. So easy to find me on Facebook. If you are seriously wanting to dive more into this world of Cornhole, I will be more than happy to answer any and all questions and point you in the right direction. Michael Taggart, who runs and the founder of Cooley Region Cornhole, also does a great job with doing tournaments at all levels. He's also another one to reach out to if you have any questions regarding Cornhole. So
perfect. Well, Caleb, I want to thank you for coming on, giving us the lowdown, giving us a couple of good stories at the beginning, and then give us the rundown on what Cornhole actually is besides the backyard game that a lot of us just love to do when we're having a picnic or a family reunion. But for those who are listening, you can go on and check out this podcast if you want to watch it on YouTube or if you want to just listen to it. We did a pretty good job describing most of the things. You can go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, any of the major streaming platforms. But don't forget to subscribe, follow, like, comment, even give me a 5-star rating. Sometimes it helps bring the podcast up for other people to enjoy. But this has been another week of Brews and Crews. We will see you next week. Cheers.